who have ensured that this library, a reputation enjoyed now for a long time, continues. I believe it is the best presidential library in our nation's history, and I'm saying that as a person who just got, Mike Devine just gave me I'm telling you, I feel like a VIP. I went all over this. It's not a museum. It's not a it's a living place. It's a place where young people will be inspired. I wish they had this when I was a kid. I mean, young people come in and they act as cabinet members. They act as journalists. They actually live some of the most important Truman moments. There's a lot of, by the way, I'm so pleased that you recognize me. The guy out in the hallway said, "Hi, Merv." But here I am. I mean, Senator Bond is at my table. AG, youngest governor in the history of the state. Senator, U.S. Senator, the Intelligence Committee, cum laude, Princeton. So I am finally sharing honors tonight with the son my mother wanted to have. But it's also true that that my familiarity with this very important chapter of American history has been enriched by this visit, and I haven't been here that long. So we can only speculate on how many people, young people especially, are inspired by what is happening at the Truman Library Institute. I've been to other libraries, not a lot of them, but I've been to others, enough to know that this is the gold standard here. This is a wonderfully creative, when you see what they've done here, you have to be awed by how creative they have been and how they've exploited modern solid-state technology so that Harry Truman almost comes alive. It's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for me. I'm very grateful. As to the man I'm replacing, I feel obligation to at least acknowledge his greatness and some of the contributions he made. Listen to this. However difficult, wrote Stephen Breyer, however difficult it may be for Congress to resolve difficult disputes, Congress, being a political body, expresses the people's will far more accurately than does an unelected court. Do I see Senator Bond saying, "You betcha"? Here, he quotes, this is Bush v. Gore. Pick a more important supreme decision. What it does today, said Breyer, the court should have left undone. I would repair the damage done as best we now can by permitting the Florida recount to continue under uniform standards. I respectfully dissent. I mean, that's another thing that makes me a proud American, and I want you to know why I'm searching for those things. I'll tell you in a moment. I feel that as I examine the history of and the demeanor of Harry Truman, first of all, I'm not sure this is necessarily flatter Clifton's grandfather. By the way, grandson has been very, very generous to me, and how well raised you are, and boy, don't you keep the family legacy alive. What a wonderful tradition. This is a family. I never give them hell. I just tell the truth, and they think it's hell. But the one that just, you know, we're tripping over our ropes today. I fear that we're devolving into a situation where we're a swamp in pretense. God bless this, God bless that, God bless my dog, God bless my cat. We just can't wait to trip over our roads, telling, everybody, how faithful we are, how important God is to us. And it's the kind of environment where you will never hear, ever, a current politician, a person who relies on the votes of the people to continue in office, will never, ever say this: my choice early in life was either to be a piano player in a whorehouse or a politician. And to tell the truth, there's hardly any difference. I mean, the man was honest. I mean, I wish we'd get back there. Can you imagine a politician today even saying the word whorehouse? And he was a real person. He came right at you. And the people with whom I've spoken here since my visit, who knew Truman, confirm this about him. Truman took an elevator all by himself. Little things like that. He was the archetypical American Midwesterner, small businessman, and very, very easy to get to know. And it's for all those reasons that I feel very, very struck by how different our culture is now than it was then. You won't hear false piety for a short-term political gain from the nation's 33rd president. And let me just say one more. I've never thought the Almighty is greatly interested in pomp and circumstances, because if he is, he wouldn't be interested in the sparrow, alluded to in the St. Matthew's Gospel. Religious stuffed shirts are just as bad or worse than political ones, in my opinion. Oh, I wish I met Harry Truman. I mean, really. Anyhow, I don't think any church on earth will take you to heaven if you're not real anyway. I believe in people living what they believe and talking afterwards. Think about that and its honesty, and how important it is that we live in a nation where really religion, your faith, is something that abides in you. It's not something you go out and, like the Pharisee, here I am, God up in front. Harry never did that. President Truman was a man of not only character, but of common sense. It's hard to think of another president, of course, most of whom I knew closely. But it was at a later time that I became kind of a dissenter. Sorry. But I learned a lesson in this adventure into liberal politics. And I learned that the dissenters are not always very, very popular. Dissenters are scolds. Dissenters don't, and the blowback that you get for being a dissenter really hurts. It hurts a lot. People tell you you're not really an American. You don't believe in, they've got God and you don't. And it's with this background that I came to the realization that I had to start telling people why I was proud to be an American. I resented this. I don't think anybody should have to. But it hurts a lot when somebody looks at you and says, you don't, if you criticize America, the other side will say, you don't like anything about America. If you criticize one issue, then it's very unfair, and it's a stinging accusation. It's one that I certainly never going to forget. And so I set about hoping to share some of the moments in American history that make me just very, very proud. Remember, this is coming from a dissenter, and it's coming from a person, who knows what it's like to be alone out there with a lot of people wondering why you're not supporting the president, why you're not supporting the war, why you're not tripping over your robes to get your picture taken and go to church every Sunday. There are people that are now demanding some sort of, you know, expression out loud, public. And that's not the way it's supposed to be. Let's come down from this pretense. You know, the troops, we love the troops. Well, the troops come home, and we know that there has been a VA establishment that has underfunded, undermanaged, undercared about, and that's a pretense. And we can't keep sending these young men and women to war and then give them very little when they come home. And we have with us tonight a man who has worked very, very hard to change all that. Senator Bond has been in the middle of this long before the Washington Post articles, which embarrassed the Walter Reed and other VA hospitals. So what do I love about America? Well, with Harry Truman watching, I'm going to see if I can't at least let you know what it is that, well, it almost, it makes me a proud American, and I'm not ashamed to say there's some of this that I read it and finish it and look at that, and it almost makes you want to cry. Here's one I'm thinking about. By the way, there are lawyers here tonight, and this is pretty fundamental law school stuff, so I'm very good at telling people what they already know. But I do think this is important. In the early 40s, Jehovah's Witnesses would not salute the flag. It was against their religion. And the Jehovah's Witnesses children in Pennsylvania would stand there frozen in class as the class said, "I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States," the Jehovah's Witness kid. You're in the 3rd grade. These people were scum. We had men and some women, World War II, dying to defend this country in Europe and Pearl Harbor and in Asia. And these young people wouldn't salute the flag. They put a rope around witnesses in downtown West Virginia after making them drink castor oil and paraded them around the square in downtown West Wheeling. They had a little girl would be in the center of other little girls with pins and poke them as they tried to. What we did to these people is unimaginable. The Catholic Church called for a boycott of all witness businesses, and they had to homeschool. The children who did not salute were not expelled, were not suspended. They were expelled. You were thrown out of school if you didn't salute the flag. And it went all the way to the Supremes. And they stood by the school district. 8 of the 9 Supremes said, "You have to salute." What's wrong with saluting? It gives the young people a sense of community with our nation. It helps them understand the greatness of this nation and become part of it. And what's wrong with that? Felix Frankfurter, salute. William O. Douglas, is there a more liberal name in American jurisprudential history than that? You better salute. 8-1. Lone dissenter Harlan Stone, who was to get it right twice. Because after that decision, which insisted that these kids have to salute, there were 1,000 injuries reported on Jehovah's Witnesses across the nation. They burned down Kingdom Hall in Kennebunk, Maine, castrated a guy in Iowa. And it was sometime later that I met and spoke with Lillian Close, who was she was the big sister of William Gobitis, who held onto his britches. That's how we know this. She reported that at the time. And it was then that Justice Jackson came down with a verdict which I think is one of the great, great moments in the history of of Supreme Court decision making. Here we have literally the entire nation. I mean, it's hard to overstate the loathing we felt for these people. And this is what's so fabulous about this Constitution. It protects the powerless, especially against the tyranny of the majority. And there was no other situation that more dramatically demonstrated this issue. There's nobody quite as powerless as little William Gobitis hanging on to his breeches. So down comes, from the mountain, come the Supremes. Second decision. Now, they've got it. They took it back. And Justice Jackson, from the bench, said this: if there is any fixed star in our constitutional constellation, it is that no official, high or petty, can prescribe what shall be orthodox in religion, nationalism, politics, or any other matters of opinion, nor may he force to confess by word or act a belief therein. You can't force an American to believe anything. You can't force an American to believe in the Constitution, which grants the right not to believe in the Constitution. This is how we want it. This is how we nourish faith that's meaningful. Appreciating this wonderful feature of this Constitution, I think, enables us to walk more peacefully and with less guilt and without any concern about showing off. Our faith is between us and the God to whom we may offer our adoration and allegiance. This is the America that I think Harry Truman helped prepare because of his humanity. Because he wasn't dogmatic. It's dogma that's getting in all this trouble. And now, I'm afraid it's getting worse. And this is just one reason why I want to celebrate the life of a 33rd president who met so many, many challenges, who took his own blowback. He was not, in every sense, the most popular president for every day that he was in the office. And yet there was never any complaining, never any whining. And he brought, I think, a sense of America as a place where people are permitted to stand up. And, we take this for granted, but I'm afraid we're not using it, and I'm afraid we're paying too large a price if you choose to step out. It intimidates other people. It makes it more difficult to hear the real voice of the people, the kind of voice that we were accustomed to hearing from Harry Truman, who did not do this, and also said out loud that he thought that this was kind of I'm going to be myself. That seems to be what Harry was saying to all of us. And so for all of these reasons, I come here and I leave now with a renewed appreciation of this man who lived in the shadow of FDR and who nevertheless kept it going, kept this nation together. And he did so as a common man who asked for no favors and put on no airs, no performances, no acting as if he didn't, as though he were a holy person. It wasn't his intention to do that. So this is one case that also makes me a proud American, and I'd like to share with you one more. Lawrence v. Texas was a case that actually abolished the anti-sodomy laws. You may know that there were several states that had laws which essentially outlawed the consensual sex between gay people in privacy. I mean, we had on the books a law that apparently allowed the cops, what's going on in here? And by the way, we have at least two Supremes today, three probably, Scalia, Thomas, and Rehnquist, who believe if a state wants to pass this kind of law, it is constitutionally permissible to do so. This happening at a time when homophobia is across the land and it is lethal. It kills people. And the United States government, or state governments, appear to be confirming homophobia by actually passing laws disallowing any intimate communication between gay people. And by the way, how do you enforce that? You can't knock the door down unless there's probable cause. You can't knock, it's not likely whoever's in there is going to say, just a minute. So the only way you can get in is knock the door down. And now come the United States Supreme Court, following all this mayhem, and gay people who've worked so hard, many of them on the Donahue Show early back in the late 60s. And I began to realize that these are people too, that this is a matter of civil rights. And the only reason I got there, maybe before a lot of other guys I went to school with, was because of my work. I met these people. And I met a lot of nice people. And I began to see, a Catholic, growing up, there were no gay guys in my high school. The Lawrence, Texas case goes to the Supremes. And Anthony Kennedy, a Catholic, by the way, read these words from the bench. There are some places in a person's life where the state may not go. And when he said that, I guarantee you President Truman would agree. It's clear in all the things he's said here that he wouldn't sit still for this kind of, actually legalizing homophobia, legalizing these kinds of illegal entries, giving the cops the power to bang people around, all the murders and the people tied to fences and just the mayhem that is caused by homophobia. And when Anthony Kennedy said there are some places in a person's life that the state may not go, the gay and lesbian lawyers from the ACLU who had argued for the petitioner dropped their heads and softly wept. This is how noble we can be. This is what makes me a proud American. And I regret that there are some places where this is not, I'm afraid, altogether understood. This is a fabulous idea. If you want to worship a pet rock, go ahead. This is America. We don't tell people. But we're coming very close to trying to do that now. And people are, by the way, almost nobody who winds up in Congress answers the question, your religion? Almost nobody says none. That's how, almost like a hostage, we are holding our public servants. Let's relax a little bit. Let's presume patriotism on the other side. Let's presume reasonableness. And we'll be happy to talk. And by the way, if you want to talk about my faith, that's fine with me. I'm not going to force it on you. And by the way, this is the most religious nation in the history of the world. I mean, we throw more holy water, burn more holy smoke, throw, more flowers on caskets on the way to our eternal reward than any other nation on earth. And I say God bless us for it. But the point is, it's the result of the separation of church and state that has given us this full meaning. And I believe where we are now confirms the goodness, the common sense of President Harry Truman. I do believe, had he not been this come right at you, no lettuce, Give them hell, Harry. That's what I'm going to do. You know, nobody talks that way today in public service. Nobody is as aggressive and unafraid. He wasn't worried about what people would think of him if he didn't posture and pomp and circumstance all over the place, showing off his religious bona fides. So now that I've come and seen the memorabilia, some of it, I see President Truman as a person of my heart that I would not have had this experience had I not made this visit. And again, I'm saying to you that I'm pleased to have accepted John McNeil's invitation. I guess, I told him that I don't, I said, you're asking me to replace Supreme Court Justice Breyer? I said, holy cow, at Notre Dame they're going to laugh me off campus. But this is, and by the way, John McNeil and I have another connection. I lived across the street from Irma Bombeck. And John's company syndicated Irma. Irma interviewed me for the Kettering Oakwood Times, a suburban paper, when I had a radio show in Dayton, Ohio. Across the street, we had stair-step kids. We were both on the parish council. That was a picnic. And I have Missouri memories. We featured Irma in St. Louis, a very large venue. I can't remember what it was. Several thousand people. And I'm running around, Irma looked this big on the stage, all by herself. And a woman way up in the balcony said, Irma, and I'm holding the mic here. I understand you were Phil Donahue's neighbor. What's Phil Donahue really like? And she said, he peeks in windows. You remember? Irma could spot pretense across a crowded room. And she certainly would be in the front row challenging the pious and the Monsignori and all the righteous brothers from the House who couldn't wait to impeach the president. Monogamous all. Talk about hypocrisy.